Welcome to tonight's Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid session. Always a popular session. You want to know how to pay for college now that you know you want to come to KSU. So my name is Nicole. I am a transfer admissions counselor here at Kennesaw State. And I want to let you know how we're going to do this tonight. So this is an interactive session. We want you to participate. So whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, make sure that you drop those questions in the chat. We know everyone has questions about financial aid. Please make sure you drop those in the chat. We'll be able to answer them here live for you. They'll get answered in the chat. And also in the chat, you will find a link to our raffle. For every session that you watch, you can register for our raffle. And this bag, it is heavy. My goodness, they've been talking about how heavy it is all night. It is heavy. This bag is full of amazing KSU swag. I don't know what all is in here, but when you win, you will find out. So every session that you attend, make sure that you register, click that link and register for our raffle. So I know that everyone has a ton of financial aid questions, so we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. I'm gonna let our guest from financial aid introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Abby Robbins. I've been with KSU a little over 2 years, and I'm a senior financial aid counselor.
And I'm Sarah Baumhoff, Interim Director of Student Support for the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. Just past 9 years here, so
Awesome.
been here for a little while. So
Perfect. All right, well, I think we are gonna get started with a video that's gonna tell you all about the financial aid process.
When do we apply for financial aid?
The free application for federal student aid opens on October 1st for the next academic year, but you can apply as early as you want. That way, if you have to submit any additional documentation, you have plenty of time to submit that information. KSU's priority deadline for filing for FAFSA is March 1st, but be sure to use KSU school code 001577 on the FAFSA.
How and when can I apply for scholarships?
Access the scholarship application through Owl Express using the link located on the Financial Aid tab. The application process is open to all accepted and currently enrolled students from November 1st through March 1st for the following academic year. Only one application is needed to be completed to apply for all of KSU's scholarships.
How do the Hope and Zell scholarships work?
We have to verify your status on georgiafutures.org to determine if you are eligible for the Hope or the Zell Miller scholarships. You can verify your status on georgiafutures.org as well. If you can see that you are eligible, most likely KSU will be able to see your status as well. You must complete an application to be evaluated for the Zell Miller or the Hope. You can file the FAFSA or the GSFA PPS on georgiafutures.org.
What is verification?
Verification is the way you verify information that you have submitted into FAFSA. You will submit certain documents to the Office of Student Financial Aid through your Owl Express account. Once you have done that, you receive further instructions through your email. Around 30% of our students are picked each year by the U.S. Department of Education.
How much do I owe?
Once your student has registered for classes, all of their charges will be applied to their student account. If you are curious about tuition and fees, please visit the Bursar's Office website for a listing of tuition and fee charges.
How can I get more information or help?
Every student is assigned a financial aid counselor by the first letter of their last name. You can find the list of names under the Contact Us tab on the Office of Student Financial Aid's website. Stop by our office anytime for assistance, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Fantastic. So, Sarah, what are some of the ways that students can go ahead and start the financial aid process? We know students always find that process really overwhelming. So, where's the best place to start?
So the first step, and the thing you will hear us say all the time, is it all starts with the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. It is a free application, and it opened for the 21-22 academic year on October 1st. So it is open right now. You can go fill it out. It uses your 2019 tax information, so you should have already filled that out or be finalizing it about now. That was what would have been due back in April, but we know because of COVID, some of the deadlines got extended for taxes, but they still should be filed by now. And we encourage you to file early, and everybody's always like, why do you want us to file in October? I mean, October is really early. I'm not coming to school for almost another year. Well, it gives you plenty of time and peace of mind to know that you've done the process. You filled out the FAFSA. If we have to ask you for more documents, you've got plenty of time to turn them in. And we have everything set and ready so that you know when you come to orientation this summer exactly what your financial aid will be and that you're ready to walk on campus and be ready to go.
And do students have to be accepted to KSU before they file their FAFSA?
Absolutely not. You can go ahead and fill it out and send it in while you're working through the admissions process, and then we will have it sitting here ready to go once you're accepted.
Perfect. And what type of aid does the FAFSA tell you that you qualify for? Does it apply to scholarships or HOPE?
So you can use the FAFSA to apply for any of the federal aid programs like the Federal Pell Grant. It can serve as your application for HOPE or Zell Miller Scholarship, so you can use it for that. We do have some internal scholarships that require you to fill out a FAFSA before you can apply for the scholarship or be eligible for the scholarship. So really that's just another incentive to apply early so that it's done and you have no issues with the scholarship process.
Perfect. And I know a lot of students are kind of electing not to submit a FAFSA because they think they're going to be stuck with student loans. If you are awarded any type of financial aid, do you have to accept that aid?
Absolutely not. In fact, we would encourage you not to borrow any more than you absolutely have to. You will be offered student loans, so we will tell you what you qualify for, but then it's totally your choice if you want to accept those or move forward through the process. So there's no requirement to accept it just because you fill out a FAFSA.
Perfect. I know that's going to make a lot of students feel a lot better. So what would be the next step? So once students have filed that FAFSA, they're looking at what they qualify for, what may happen next for them?
Abby, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, so sometimes about 1 in 3 FAFSAs get selected for the verification process. So this isn't anything the student did wrong filling out the FAFSA. Sometimes it's just totally random, and all it is that the school, so KSU would collect additional documents just to verify some of the information on the FAFSA is correct. So all you have to do through this is just submit the documents through your AlExpress through a secure portal. And the most important part of the verification process is to turn in the documents early and to check your KSU email often.
And when they are submitting those documents and when they're reaching out to the Office of Financial Aid, is their student email the best way to do that?
Yes. So every time you email us, please do it from your student email and include your KSU ID number. And that way we can just look you up very quickly and assist you in the best way possible.
And what type of documents do students usually need to provide during that verification process?
So all students will fill out a verification web form, so just a worksheet online to fill out. And then depending on whether or not you use the data retrieval tool when you're filling out the FAFSA or not, you may have to submit your tax returns or a tax return transcript. And sometimes we need other additional documentations like W-2s and stuff like that.
Perfect. All right, so after verification, we will move on to scholarship programs. So I know a lot of students at KSU, they qualify for HOPE or Zell Miller. How do they qualify? What do they need to turn in? How do they keep their hope? Because it's sad. It is sad when you lose hope. We don't want students to lose hope. Right. So how do they maintain that eligibility? What does that process look like?
So let's start from the point of you're graduating from high school. So we're talking to high school seniors. Your high school sends your transcript data to Georgia Student Finance Commission. They administer the GA Futures website, and hopefully you have heard about gafutures.org at this point. But they will send your transcript data from your high school years to that website. They calculate and they tell us who qualifies for HOPE or for Zell Miller. So for the HOPE scholarship, it only looks at your core classes. So your band, your PE, those things do not count towards that high school HOPE GPA. They calculate it, and it's a required 3.0 GPA coming out of high school to qualify for HOPE. We tell students all the time, please go to gafutures.org and click on the link that says your HOPE GPA and review what it says it is. Most of the high schools in the state now report the transcript data at least once a year, starting as early as your 9th grade year. so that you can watch it while you're going through high school. The reason we tell students to do that is you can't depend on what the cumulative GPA is on your transcript to match what your Hope GPA is. So it's really important that you check that calculation. They don't weight AP and honors classes the same way your high school might, so it's really important to check that with GSFC. Once they have designated you as a Hope Scholar, you have to have an application of some sort. Mentioned earlier, it could be the FAFSA, which you would need to fill out every year, but the other option is to fill out what we lovingly call the GSF apps. Some schools spell it out and say a GSF APPS. That's what it was referred to in the video. It's an application on gafutures.org that just applies for Hope or Zell Miller Scholarship. So it's not used for anything other than those sources. So you can do that, and it's good for 10 years. So you only have to fill it out once. So the other part, so for Zell Miller Scholarship, where for Hope you had to have that 3.0 GPA calculated by Georgia Student Finance Commission, for Zell Miller it's a 3.7 GPA. They also required test scores of at least a 26 on the ACT or a 1200 on the SAT. Now we know with COVID there's been a whole lot of issues with test scores and being able to take tests and reschedule tests, and there is some legislation where they're talking about what they're going to do with test scores, but nothing's been finalized or passed yet. So at this point, that's the requirements for Zell Miller. And so the high school, or your high school sends the transcript data. Georgia Student Finance Commission tells us, hey, Abby qualified for Hope or Abby qualified for Zell Miller. It is one or the other. We get that question a lot. Can I have both of them? We wish you could, but it is one or the other. And then once you're here in college, your grades are everything counts. Pretty much everything you take counts. There's no certain requirement, and you have to have a 3.0 to keep Zell or to keep Hope and a 3.3 to keep Zell Miller. So it's awesome. I would encourage you, if you're watching and you've still got a couple years out, to go ahead and start tracking that information in gafutures.org so you don't have any surprises at the end.
Now, if a student is not graduating from a Georgia high school, are there any circumstances where maybe they're transferring in, or if they don't qualify for Hope right away from a Georgia high school, where they can gain Hope after they start college?
Absolutely. So after you take, if you didn't graduate as a final Hope Scholar, after you take 30 semester hours with a 3.0, as long as you meet all the other residency requirements and those things, you can earn Hope.
Perfect.
You can never earn Zell Miller. So you have to be it at the time of high school graduation, but you can earn Hope Scholarship. So.
And what does Hope and Zell Miller, what do they pay for and what do they not pay for, and what percentage are they covering?
They are tuition-only awards, so they only can go towards your tuition. At KSU, the Hope Scholarship covers 90% of tuition. So it's $167 per semester hour, but like I said, that's 90% of the tuition, so that's a pretty great.
That's fantastic.
Great incentive. If you are a Zell Miller Scholar, it pays 100% of tuition, which is $185.40 an hour. So then when you're talking about coming and looking at camp cost and affordability and that kind of stuff, it's only paying for fees if you're a Zell Miller Scholar, or fees plus a couple $100 for Hope to look at just tuition and fees.
Perfect. So neither scholarship is going to cover any sort of housing cost or book cost or mandatory fees or things like that, unless you're Zell Miller.
It is just straight
tuition.
That's all those can be used for.
All right, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and move on to scholarships beyond Hope and Zell Miller. So what sort of scholarships are available? I know the financial aid website has a ton of great information about KSU specific scholarships as well as external scholarships. So how do they navigate that process? Is it one application after another? You guys have made it really easy.
We have. We launched a new product earlier this spring that's called Scholarship Universe. And the web address is kennesaw.scholarshipuniverse.com. It lets you search for both external scholarships, and the internal scholarships will be in there starting November 1st.
That's amazing.
One place.
Yes, one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. And the really cool thing about this website and how it's set up is it matches you to scholarships you apply for. So, or you qualify for, not apply for, then you choose to apply for them. So for the internal ones, it will be one application. And it will show you every scholarship that you match to, and you just hit submit, and it applies to everyone that you match to. For the external ones, you'll get a list of ones you match to, but then you'd have to go follow whatever their application procedures are. And those vary depending on where they're coming from, who's offering the scholarship. And these scholarships have all been vetted. And what we mean by that is somebody's actually gone out and researched and made sure that this is not somebody just trying to collect your data to sell you something or to sign you up for something, to call you or to spam you. These are legitimate scholarship organizations that are reviewed before they're allowed to be a part of the website. The internal scholarship application opens November 1st, so just in a couple of weeks, really soon. It will close March 1st. So you will have about 5 months to fill that out. You do have to have a KSU Net ID and password to be able to get into the site and search and apply for the scholarships.
Awesome. So do students have to be accepted before they can submit it, or do they just need to be in the admissions process?
They have to be in the admissions process.
Okay, perfect.
So they can still use the portal through there.
Perfect. And now you mentioned with the external scholarships that these have been vetted. So what are some of the pitfalls that students sometimes run into if they are Googling scholarship opportunities? What do they want to make sure that they avoid and never do where scholarships are concerned?
One of the things we recommend that you never do about anything with financial aid is pay somebody. Whether it's to fill out your FAFSA or whether it's to apply for a scholarship or any of those kinds of things, we do not recommend that you pay somebody to go do that for you. It is some legwork and it is some work to do those things, but most times what we have found is that a lot of those, especially the scholarship searches, will charge them $500 for a promise of a $200 scholarship. Well, you can kind of figure out math. So you can kind of figure out the math on that. So we would much rather you use us. Call us. We are more than willing to help you fill out your FAFSA. We're more than willing to help get you started on the scholarship search and give you tips and tricks. Students every year use our writing center to help with their essays for scholarships. I mean, there's resources right here on campus that you can tap into to help you have a really good scholarship application. And if it just has money attached to it that you have to pay to it, I would say stay away.
Perfect, perfect. Now, the scholarship application opens November 1st, it closes March 1st, and that is for the next academic year. So
Correct.
Students right now, in the next couple of weeks, they'll be submitting that application for the fall 2021 going into spring, and they're awarded by the year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So, the awards will probably be sent out late spring, so maybe April. The April timeframe will be when you'll be notified if you got a scholarship. You will be notified if you received one or if you didn't. So we will let you know either way. If you don't hear from us, you certainly can check with us and we can let you know your status. And those will be used for fall 2021 and spring 2022.
Awesome.
So it's for next academic year.
Now, let's say we have students who are starting with us mid-year. They're coming in spring semester. Are there scholarship opportunities that are available for them, or will they need to go ahead and plan ahead for that next year?
They'll need to go ahead and plan ahead for that next year. There really aren't very many that are awarded in the middle of the year. Most of them are done fall, spring by the departments and the way the foundation has it set up.
Gotcha.
So.
And what types of scholarships are available? Are they only available to freshman students coming in? Can all students go ahead and submit that scholarship application?
All students can submit that application. Awesome. So one of the big things that I like to make sure that parents and students are aware of on these internal scholarships and what KSU has to offer is these programs are funded by very generous donors to the university. That they have given us the money to do these scholarship programs, and they sometimes put criteria on them, such as you have to be accepted into Coles or you have to have this college GPA. So we do have some that are open for first-time freshmen for coming in or for first-time transfer students coming in, but we also have a lot that are for returning students and for based on their college performance. So it really is open for everyone, and we want everyone to apply to have a chance to get those scholarship dollars. Anything that you can help get paid for free is great. And if it's a $500 scholarship, it may not feel like a whole lot, but $500 is half the fees or your books for a semester or, you know, towards a payment on a room. So it adds up quickly when you do the work for it.
For sure. So just like the FAFSA, this scholarship application is something students want to make sure that they are submitting every year. So
yes.
October 1st, file that FAFSA. November 1st, file your scholarship application
we want
every
them
single
to apply
year.
every year.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about tuition and fees, about how the financial aid process works with our tuition and fees, and what is available for students as far as the affordability of KSU.
We touched a little bit when we were talking about Hope, that Hope covers 90% of tuition. So the tuition for 2021, these are tongue twister years, y'all, is $2,781, $2,781 per semester. And then the fees are right at $1,000. So we're looking at about $3,700 for tuition and fees.
And that's for a full-time
For
student.
a full-time student that's in 15 hours, actually. So it is prorated if you take less than that. So the fees are pretty much standard unless you're like less than half time. But the tuition is prorated by the hour. It's $185.40. So if you are a Hope Scholar, you've got everything but $1,200 covered in tuition and fees.
That's
on that one
amazing.
first semester. So it is affordable. 80% of our students receive some sort of financial aid. Now that includes scholarships, grants, loans, federal work study. That's the whole gamut, but it's around $350 million every year that runs through our office. So students are finding ways to finance their education. We know that nobody wants to borrow student loans. I get it. Paid mine off. I understand it completely. It's one of those things that's with you for a long time. But if it helps you bridge the gap and you borrow conservatively and only borrow what you need, not necessarily what you want, you can make it manageable and make it very affordable. And KSU is a really affordable choice to attend school. Even if all you qualified for were loans, you still would have plenty of room to pay that tuition and fees and still have some left over for books or other things if you needed it. So.
Perfect. Now, how does that process work? Let's say a student accepts their financial aid, and what sort of things outside of tuition can that financial aid pay for towards their education?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, so you can use whatever financial aid you have left over after your tuition and fees for housing. Say if you're living on campus, you'll be billed your housing on your payment portal. So that financial aid can be applied to that. It can be applied to meal plans. If you're not living on campus and you still have enough financial aid to cover all your tuition and fees with some left over, you can also use that for outside expenses like books, food, transportation, basically any educational related expenses you can use your financial aid for if you have enough left over after your tuition and fees.
So tuition and fees is going to get paid first,
Yes.
and then we can move on to
Yes.
bigger and better things like housing and meal plans and fun stuff. All right, fantastic. So I'm trying to think. Do we have any questions from the? Okay, we want to make sure we get to all of your questions.
Sorry. So Charlotte from YouTube, she asked about international students with an F1 visa, what options they would have as far as financial aid goes.
Great
So
question.
students with F1 visas are not eligible to apply for federal aid, so they can't use the FAFSA and they can't use those sources. There are some scholarship opportunities that we have for some of our international students that are awarded through departments that come through. And then there are some other options of financing outside of that, like private loans or things like that to help with those sources. But most of the resources that are awarded to students on the F1 visa come from outside of our office.
Great. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Can you speak a little bit about federal work study? How does it work? How many hours can a student work during the week? Where can they work? Just a little bit more information about that program.
So you can either select on your FAFSA when you're filling it out that you're interested in federal work study, or if you don't select that on the FAFSA, it's totally fine. There's an application on our website where you can fill it out and we'll determine if you're eligible for the federal work study or not. So a student, if you're eligible for federal work study, you will go into our job search and you can apply to any job that is listed as a federal work study job. And you apply a normal way, you get hired, and then once you have secured a job, you can work up to 20 hours a week. And the salary can range, so there is a little bit of salary range. It's not always going to be minimum wage, but it just depends on the position.
And that money is paid directly to you. So you get a paycheck, so that doesn't go to your student account.
Yes.
And the other flip side of that is you have to earn it.
Yeah.
So if you get awarded $3,000 in federal work study, you're not automatically going to receive $3,000 unless you work and earn the $3,000. But you could be an admissions tour guide.
Absolutely.
You could work on campus in the library and the rec center. I mean, jobs are all over campus that are federal work study jobs. So there's lots of options if that's something you're interested in. That's how I started in college, was as a work study student. So actually in financial aid. So, but I mean, so you never know. It might give you real life experience. That's where you decide to work later.
I was
pretty
about to
sure
say
we
you
have
love
some
it so much.
We have some admissions folks that started out through that process and are still here.
Yeah. 21 years later. That's right. That's right. Awesome. Are there any other questions? You have a yes. All right, Adam.
If y'all wouldn't mind speaking on kind of how Hope or dual enrollment plays a factor in receiving Hope as a high school student.
So the really great thing about dual enrollment hours is they don't count towards your Hope hours. So when you are a Hope recipient, you're basically given 127 hours of eligibility. But those dual enrollment hours don't count towards that. You just get 127 of Hope once you start here. So the only way the dual enrollment hours play in is those grades when they're reported by your high school to complete graduation. So, but it doesn't impact your Hope GPA for college. So if you didn't do real great as a dual enrollment student one semester, those grades don't hurt your Hope GPA once you're in college. They don't count. The only classes we count are ones that you take after high school graduation. So it's a great way to get a start, to start taking some of those courses and actually leave you with some extra hours to go for something else you can use your Hope for. It used to be that those hours counted against their Hope limits, but they don't anymore. It's just straight out. You get 127 hours for Hope and you get 30 hours for dual enrollment. So.
Awesome. Now, is there a time limit for using Hope? Does Hope expire?
There is, and they keep changing it. So it is now 10 years. It's a 10-year expiration date, but that depends on your date of high school graduation. And you can see that on gafutures.org, just like where we talked about. You can see your GPA information under your Hope GPA. It also will tell you your expiration date. So it is different for different students. If you graduated last year, it's 7 years. If you graduated in 2020, it's 10. So it does change and fluctuate a little bit. So it's a great plan to go check gafutures.org to get that expiration date.
Yes, and I think what a lot of people don't realize about Hope and Zell Miller is that the legislature votes on that every, July?
Well, they usually start in session in February. So we
February.
usually find out the new rules in the summer.
So those new rules come into effect. So reach out to your representatives for that Hope information to make sure we keep Hope. Did you have any more questions in the chat? Or, nope, Natasha does. Yes, all right.
Yes. We get a lot of questions about summer and Hope. Can you go into detail about, do I need to be a full-time student? Do I need to be a part-time student? What do I qualify for, and so forth?
You never, ever, ever have to be a full-time student for Hope or Zell Miller, any semester. Not fall, not spring, not summer. If you take one class, Hope will pay for it as long as you're eligible. So it's great to come in the summer and you can still take 3 credit hours and get your Hope for those 3 credit hours. So, but that's often a misconception, is that a lot of our students believe they have to be full-time, and they just don't. You don't have to be full-time. I don't know where that misconception comes from, because every time we have an opportunity to tell anybody, we're like, you don't have to be full-time, because it seems to be something that students are really confused about, and you don't. It pays by the number of hours you're registered for. So if you were full-time this semester and you decided you didn't want to be full-time next semester, you still can be in 9 hours and still get your Hope Scholarship or your Zell Miller Scholarship. It's up to you.
Now, for other types of financial aid, are there minimum enrollment hour qualifications for, say, student loans or other types of scholarships?
There absolutely are. So for student loans, you have to be in at least 6 hours as an undergraduate student. So there's that. And the Pell Grant prorates. So you are either full-time, 3/4 time, half-time, or less than half-time. And Pell pays a different amount based on where that falls. And so full-time is 12 hours or more. The 3/4 time is 9 to 12. Half-time is 6 to 8. And then less than 6 is less than full-time.
Okay.
Too much information. Too much information.
If you're below half-time, you're just, that's it. Okay, so one class.
Yes, but Hope and Zell, those don't matter.
Those you can take 1 hour, 15 hours. They don't care.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so Natasha has another question.
Yes. So we have a lot of military and veteran students who apply to KSU. Is there a different process for those types of students? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
That is all handled through our registrar's office. We actually have a VA representative or a couple of VA representatives in the registrar's office who work with the students to navigate the process of getting the paperwork submitted and everything put in place so that their tuition and fees are paid in timely using the GI Bill or Post 911 or whichever program they're using, and they're very well versed in that. So I know a lot of schools it runs through their financial aid office, but it does not here at KSU. It runs through the registrar's office.
Now, I know there's a lot of different types of aid available. So there's the Hope Scholarship, there's other types of scholarships, there's student loans, there's grants. Is there a max on the amount of aid money that a student can qualify for or that they can take advantage of based on the tuition and fees and housing and everything here at KSU?
So every student has a cost of attendance. So that cost of attendance includes tuition fees, estimated housing costs, transportation costs, estimated personal expenses. And so that is kind of the maximum amount of financial aid you can receive is that cost of attendance. So your total financial aid cannot exceed that cost of attendance. And so it can vary per student too, based on if you're in state, out of state, but it's something you could view on your AliExpress.
And that's all types of aids combined.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have some couple questions from the chat there?
So I do have a couple. Just to highlight again what was being spoke on, if y'all could maybe highlight the difference between grants and scholarships. I know that's something we commonly get. Somebody will ask what the difference between a grant and a scholarship is.
Well, they're both free money, so that's great.
We love free money.
We love free money. Typically, scholarships have some sort of merit component to it, either a GPA requirement or a certain GPA to receive it, where grants may be more that it's based on your need or that you've done something. Like we have some departments on campus that do grant money if somebody does research for them or something like that. So grants may be more based on financial need from the FAFSA or something that you're being asked to do. Like the scholarships usually have that merit component, GPA, test score, or something like that to qualify for those. But grants and scholarships are great, free money. If you ever see the word loan on it, then that is something you'll need to repay back. And so a lot of times we call that self-help. And that is things that you get to help you pay for college, but then there's something in it. You're going to have to pay it back once you go back.
Perfect. Now, with scholarships, I lost my question. It just flew right out of my head. That's awesome. I know Adam has more questions.
Well, I will tell you.
I will come back to my question because it flew right out of my head.
While you're talking about scholarships, we have lots of students that get external scholarships. So they receive it from their local high school or their church or some sort of civic organization, or they won an essay contest. We have students that bring in checks all the time for external scholarships from the outside. So you just bring those checks into us and we get them applied to your student account.
That was my question. How do they coordinate that process?
It's just that simple. You bring the check into the office and we get it applied to your account. So
perfect.
So we had an additional question about the kind of the timeline for a student if they were applying or once they submit the FAFSA, what that looks like to finally receive whatever aid it may be, or how long that usually takes, or if that is something that varies.
It is something that varies. If they're selected for verification, then they have to do the verification process. If not, we are not sending out award letters for 21-22 yet. We still need some upgrades to our student information system, but our hope is that those will be out, if not before the end of the year, really soon, like in January or so that they will see an estimate of what they're eligible for. We kind of call those estimates because a lot of things aren't set in stone yet. Nicole mentioned about the fact that our legislators vote on Hope and Zell Miller changes and those kinds of things. We usually don't get those rates until April or May. So then we would have to redo or relook at the award package to update it for the new award amounts that we get for that year. So right now, if you're applying for 21-22 and you know you've already submitted your FAFSA, give us a few weeks and we will be in touch with you about next steps. If there's anything you need to do or if you're all set and ready to go, then we will follow up with you as well.
Another reason to go ahead and start that process as early as possible. Now, to get in touch with your financial aid counselor, what is the best way for students to reach out to the financial aid office?
So the best way to reach us is definitely by email. So if you go to our financial aid website and go to contact us, everybody has an assigned financial aid counselor. So it's based on last name, so you just find the first letter of your last name, you'll see who your counselor is, and you'll have their email. So it's just really easy. You can just click on the email and send it off right then and there. You can also call us. We have walk-in hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, no appointment necessary. So if you'd rather come in person, you can absolutely do that. But email is definitely the quickest and best way to reach us.
Perfect. Now, if a student has submitted nothing, if they haven't done their FAFSA yet, if they're confused about the whole process, can they come in and talk to someone about kind of a step-by-step to get that process started?
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to help. Like I said, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, come on in. We're in Kennesaw Hall on the Kennesaw campus, and then administrative building on the Marietta campus.
Okay, fantastic. And I think, were there more questions? Yes, Natasha had a question.
So Sarah, you spoke a little bit about scholarships and different type of external scholarships. I'm just curious to know, you hear a lot of scholarships or students talk about, I'm left-handed, can I get a scholarship? I'm 5'2", and I'm just mentioning it because I meet all that criteria. Any unique scholarships that you all have seen over the period of time you've been at KSU that you can certainly maybe recommend to students to check out?
I don't know that I've seen one for left-handed. I always hear about the red-headed one too. I hear that there's some for red-headed. That doesn't mean that there's not those kinds of opportunities out there. But it would just be like I would say with anything else. Start with things you know. Your high school counselor probably has a whole list of scholarships that are available in the community. I know that my son's high school counselors are sending out stuff all the time about we need people to apply for these scholarships or we need applicants. It may be things in your community, your church, your parents may be a member of a civic organization or something like that. Start with those, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It may feel like it's only a $500 scholarship, but if you get 5 or 6 $500 scholarships, that's $3,000 to go, and that's free money again. So start with the things you know. You can use that Scholarship Universe link that we talked about to search for external scholarships. We know that those have been vetted and looked at. You certainly can use Google and search for a scholarship. I just would caution you about paying for anything and making sure you do a little research on them to make sure that you're not sending your information to somebody that might use it for something that wasn't the best of ideas. So.
Watch out for those red flags. Don't
Right.
give them your social security number.
Right.
Don't give them money.
Exactly.
Yes, you don't want to spend money to get money. Perfect. Now, I know a lot of students maybe are a little hesitant to submit the scholarship application. So let's say you're not a 4.0 student with really great SATs. I know that there are tons of scholarships. Some are need-based, where some are merit-based. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between the need-based and the merit-based and kind of how those are decided?
Absolutely. So we kind of touched on a little bit that some scholarships have GPA requirements, but some don't. Some simply say you have to fill out a FAFSA and show you have financial need. And so that may look like, it may look like that what the awards are that you qualify for, or it may be that we're just looking at, what you've been awarded and do you still have room where you need assistance to get through college. So I would tell everybody you need to at least apply once. And that's kind of what we say about the FAFSA. Apply once, see what you're eligible for. If you know you never want to borrow a student loan and you don't want to fill it out every year, that's fine. But do it at least once, see what you're eligible for. We would say the same thing about the scholarship application, but with a caveat. Because of the fact our scholarships, some of them are set for people that are juniors or seniors in college. If you apply for it as a freshman, you're not going to get it because the donor said they only wanted it to go to juniors and seniors. So just know there's a wide range of things, and I personally feel like it's worth maybe the hour of your time, maybe an hour and a half, depending on what all you need to answer to fill out a scholarship application. There's not many things you can do that for an hour and a half and get $750 awarded to you.
Right,
So.
right. The FAFSA is free. The scholarship
Right.
application is free. It just takes a little bit of time, and you never know.
Exactly.
So that's great. Were there more questions in the chat, Natasha?
So I have a question. Financial aid talks a lot about this acronym called EFC, Estimated Family Contribution. Can you all talk a little bit about it, maybe explain in detail what that means to the student, and if they see that pop up, should they be concerned? Should they call you all? etc.?
So I personally don't like the acronym EFC, or expected family contribution, because to me, if you tell me something's a contribution, it's money I need to give you. And so sometimes when you fill out the FAFSA, that number looks really scary. And so what we would tell you is that it's kind of an index. It tells us what age you're going to qualify for. So that helps us determine if you will qualify for the Pell Grant, if your loans will be subsidized, which means that the government pays the interest for you while you're in school. It just kind of helps us give a range of what kind of financial aid you qualify for. It uses the information off your FAFSA, how many are in your household, how many are in college. It looks at your tax information as well as some asset information, age of the parents, what state you live in. There really is a lot of things that go into it. But we also know that we're in a really weird time. Obviously, lots of times for open houses, we would be standing to you in a packed convocation center, chatting with you and talking with you about financial aid, and things are a little different this year. And so we know that for a lot of our families, that's impacted their ability to pay for college as well. And so we also have a process where we can take kind of a second look at your application based on if your circumstances have changed. Maybe in 2019 you were employed and in 2020 you aren't. And so we can review that. We'll open up that process in January. It's called a special circumstance process. You can reach out to your financial aid counselors. As Abby mentioned earlier, they can walk you through the process of exactly what's needed and the kind of things we look at. But we try to make it where we can look at this and make it so that college is affordable for you. Knowing that sometimes affordability is loans. And I know that not everybody wants to hear that, but sometimes that is what you have to look at to help bridge that gap.
Sure. So you mentioned subsidized loans. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan? Because I know when they get that award, they're going to see a couple of different things, and just let us know the difference between those two types of loans.
Absolutely. So the subsidized is where the interest is paid for you while you're in college. So as a freshman, if you borrow $3,500, when you finish school, you will owe $3,500. So that's really the better of the loans to get, but there's a limit on how much you can get in subsidized. And that limit for a freshman is $3,500. That's the most you can get in a subsidized loan. You also can borrow something that's called unsubsidized. And so that one is where you are responsible for paying the interest while you're in college or having it added to the balance of the loan. We would recommend that you at least get the lender to send you the information to tell you what the interest is that you owe. If you don't pay it, there's no penalty. But if you don't know that it's only $10 for a quarter, and you just let it keep adding up, then it's just more and more you have to repay at the end. So that EFC number that we talked about is what determines whether you get subsidized or unsubsidized or a combination of both of them.
Now we love our little shortened phrases. We have EFC, we have all kinds of little acronyms that we like to use, and one is SAP. So can you explain SAP, satisfactory academic progress to students, and how that can impact their financial aid?
Absolutely. You want to do it?
Sure. All right. So SAP is required for all students to be maintained in order to continue to be eligible for any financial aid, all financial aid. So it's a couple components. One of them is that a student must maintain a 2.0 GPA if they're undergrad, or a 3.0 GPA if they're a graduate student. And then another component of SAP is the 67% completion rate. So a student must earn a grade for at least 67% of the classes they attempt. So if you get a F in a class, or a W, a WF, those don't count as earned hours, but they do count as attempted hours. So if a student doesn't meet one of those standards at the end of the semester, SAP gets calculated at the end of each semester. Then the following semester, they're going to be on SAP warning. So that's your one chance to get that SAP back up and meeting the SAP standards. So if a student is not meeting SAP at the end of that warning semester, they'll be on SAP failure, and that means that they aren't eligible for any financial aid at all, including like outside loans, alternative loans, private loans, Hope Scholarship, none of it. But there is an appeal process for students, so it's not necessarily you're out of luck. So you can either get an SAP appeal approved, you can pay out of pocket until you meet those SAP standards again, but it's just good to keep in touch with your financial aid counselor to make sure you're on track.
So it's not just the GPA. If they
Yes.
are not completing a certain amount of 67%
Yes.
of the courses that they register for, they can also lose that financial aid opportunity.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And it's cumulative.
Yes.
So if you don't meet it for one semester, like you were in 12 hours and you withdrew from 6, so you're only going to have a 50% completion rate, well, then it's added to the next semester. So it's cumulative, so you have a chance to build it up.
Okay.
And so we try to warn students if they're going to withdraw from a lot of classes. Just keep in mind if you're close on that SAP standard that, you know, it may put you in a point where you have to appeal to get your financial aid back. And we don't want anybody to be put in that situation if we can help it.
So if a student is considering withdrawing from a class or maybe only registering for a certain number of hours, is that something that they would want to go ahead before they decide to withdraw and reach out to their financial aid counselor?
Yes, yes. So definitely reach out to us if you're thinking about withdrawing. We can just kind of give you a heads up and outlook of what your SAP is currently looking at, and just let you know how it could be impacted if it's going to put you below that 67% threshold, just so you know what you're getting into if you decide to withdraw from that class.
Now with HOPE, that is reviewed as well, and so students have to maintain that GPA, but do those withdrawals count towards those attempted hours for HOPE in that GPA calculation?
So they count towards the 127.
Okay.
So your 127-hour limit. But in terms of the actual GPA calculation, it's looking at the classes you complete. So it looks at the actual GPA hours for HOPE. And those are checked at the end of every spring semester. You're checked to see if you have that 3.0 for HOPE or that 3.3 for Zell Miller, and when you attempt 30, 60, and 90 semester hours. So there's a couple of checkpoints to make sure they're meeting that GPA.
Make sure we keep HOPE.
Yes,
That's right.
exactly.
Make sure we keep HOPE. All right, Adam?
Yeah, so I just had one more question here regarding graduate students and the opportunities they have. Obviously, a little bit different since it's not the 127 hours of HOPE you get, but if you could speak on just opportunities graduate students have.
So the primary source of financial aid through our office for graduate students is student loans. There are student loan options, but they also can complete that scholarship application, the internal scholarship. There are scholarship opportunities. A lot of our graduate departments have different resources available to them that they can sometimes do scholarships for students as well. So I really would, if you're thinking about coming to KSU as a graduate student, know that you have that student loan option, but you may also want to talk to your department about what scholarship opportunities they may know of, and be sure you fill out that internal scholarship application.
And is that the same for students who are maybe they've gotten that bachelor's degree, but now they've been in the workforce for a couple of years and they've decided to make a career change and they're maybe coming back for a second bachelor's degree? Is that going to be the same opportunities available for them?
Yes, so once you've earned your first bachelor's degree, that pretty much ends your eligibility for HOPE or Zell Miller, for a Pell Grant, for most of the federally funded grant programs and the state grant programs or state scholarship programs, they stop once you've earned that bachelor's degree. So that means that you are pretty much financing it through student loans or scholarships if you get those opportunities for you.
Okay, perfect. And I know we're getting a little bit close on time. So what are some of the maybe most common pitfalls that students run into or issues that they run into with their financial aid process that they can maybe be on the lookout for and help avoid some of those issues and just have a nice, smooth process?
I would say the most common pitfall is students not checking their KSU email, so they don't realize when they have been selected for verification until, classes are about to start in a week, and then at that point it's kind of too late to get everything in place in time for that payment deadline. So definitely just check your student email. If you have to submit documents, do that early, and so that's what we see most of.
Perfect. So let's say a student has made a last-minute decision to come to KSU. What sort of financial aid process can they expect? Are they going to need to be prepared to pay out of pocket and then maybe be reimbursed? Or is there going to be enough time up until a certain point for that financial aid to still process for that current term?
It depends on what you mean by last minute.
Okay.
But we will do our absolute best every time. If you've got your FAFSA on file and you decide late that you're going to come, you register the first week of classes, we're going to do our best to help you. It may result in that you may need to pay out of pocket and be reimbursed for any financial aid that you need to receive or that you are eligible to receive, but we're going to try to make it work for you. We run our processes daily to try to make sure we capture any student who needs to be awarded financial aid or who needs to be reviewed so that we're doing it as quickly as possible. the thing I like to tell people is we're a really big school now.
Yes.
Even though it doesn't always feel that way when you work here, it doesn't feel like we're a big school, but we are, and we have lots and lots of students who get financial aid through our office. And if all 30 some odd thousand of our students who get financial aid waited until August 1st to apply, we would never be able to get it done. It's not physically possible. So that's why we have earlier deadlines. But if you are on the fence and you're not sure and you make a last minute decision, reach out to us. We will do the very best we can to get everything processed for you, and we'll be upfront with you and say, hey, it's probably not going to happen. You need to pay up front. You need to sign up for the payment plan. You can do this or that, and give you what your options are and let you know kind of a timeline of when you would actually see your financial aid.
Perfect. And I know you guys have a lot of great resources on the financial aid website. So if they go to financialaid.kennesaw.edu, what are some of the things that they can find to assist them with that process, either with initially applying, or I know you guys have a lot of great videos to help walk them through. What sort of things can they find to help them with that process?
Everything you need to know about financial aid you can find on our website. So you can find out about the different types of aid, where to apply for different types of aid, scholarship links. You can find out who your counselor is, and contact information. That should be your first stop. When you have any kind of financial aid question, check out our website first and then reach out.
And if you're really one of those that likes to do the YouTube videos or search for that kind of stuff, we have a whole channel of financial aid videos. So if that's what you like to look at and that's how you like to learn, most of them are a minute or shorter or a minute and a half. They're very small, short snippets of information, and those are there for you to use as well. So.
Fantastic. So are there any other questions in the chat? Oh.
One last thing. You all mentioned getting in contact with a financial aid counselor. During COVID times, is there an opportunity for parents and or students to actually physically meet with anybody? Would you all prefer email?
We will do whatever you're comfortable with. So our staff are rotating in and out every other week. So if your assigned counselor isn't in the office when you want to come visit, we will make sure somebody else is there to meet with you if you want to sit down and meet with somebody face to face. We will ask that you wear a mask, and we will observe social distancing and do all of that. We will do that. If you want to do a virtual appointment and you want to do something online, we will do that, and we will meet with you and your parents virtually. You can call us, you can email us, tell us what you're comfortable with, and we'll work to make it work.
Perfect. So wrapping up, what is your best piece of advice to students as they start this financial aid process?
Check your email.
Check your email. Always check your email.
And I would just say start early and don't ever be intimidated by the process. We know that financial aid is not necessarily the most fun topic that you want to deal with, and that it can be very intimidating and a little bit nerve-wracking, but please reach out to us. We're human. We're here to help. We're not big, scary people. We try not to be big, scary people, and we want you to be successful. So let us know how we can help you, and don't wait to get started because you're scared of it. That just puts everything behind the 8 ball, and you just get further and further behind. So.
Perfect. So file your FAFSA, file your scholarship application. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for joining us to learn about financial aid. If you have any other questions with financial aid, please reach out to them in the financial aid office and visit financialaid@kennesaw.edu. And we're going to end with the owl eyes and hootie hoo. You guys ready?
We're ready.
All right. Hootie hoo.
Hootie hoo.